Hey, what's up, Googans? Beef here. It's after drill, a Friday edition. Drew will be along momentarily. Drew Hicken, he's next door helping Tyler Devitt with something for Jaguars today because he's a helpful sort. He's a very nice boy. I'm Beef, of course. If you missed the drill this morning, you missed a lot. It was a wild one on the drill. The getting ready for Game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight. Warriors going for the sweep, which I think they will finish off because I think they want it tonight. They want to wrap up the sweep. They want to end this thing. I think that's kind of like the last sort of hurdle, last thing for them in this this battle with LeBron right now is they had the gentleman's sweep last year, but I think they want the real deal. I think they want the 4-0 kill shot today, and I think they'll get it. Also, we got into a lot about the accomplishment and the historic moment last night with the Washington Capitals winning the Stanley Cup. They're a franchise that has been notorious for failure in the history of their existence, for choking, for gagging, for blowing leads in playoff series. So for Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals to win the Cup, it was a historic accomplishment. And we found ourselves kicking around trying to come up with comparison, a historical comparison throughout sports history. And it's hard. It's hard for the combination of not just a long-suffering fan base and franchise getting their first championship, but also a megastar player getting his first championship at the same time. Drew's here. Hello, Drew.
Play the intro.
Play the intro. Do you want to scream like your dad?
No.
No?
I think people probably get enough of that on the drill.
At 7 a.m. I was just talking about, the Caps winning the Cup last night, and it was hard to come up with a comparison, a historical comparison with a team winning their first title and a big star getting his first title at the same time. I mean, people that don't follow hockey and don't stay up on top of hockey, which I understand it's not a big sport here in Jacksonville, but you don't understand maybe how big of a star Alex Ovechkin is. Alex Ovechkin is a monumental superstar hockey player.
Really, 14 years in?
14 years in. He was the number one pick in 2014. He suffered with this team. He's been, on this team his whole career, and he's been through all these playoff failings and struggles that the Capitals have gone through. He's been identified as one of the best gaggers in the history of sports. It's an albatross that a lot of guys carried through their whole career could never escape. And I think the closest approximation, in my estimation, as far as the level of player matching the length of time since a franchise has won a title or ever won a title is John Elway. John Elway spent his whole career in Denver. The Broncos never got it done, but they got close a lot and blew it a lot. And then finally, in the late 90s with Terrell Davis, they finally were able to get over the hump and win that title. And it lifted that monkey off of John Elway's back, that he could get it done, that he could win the title. And I feel like that's the same thing with Alex Ovechkin. There was no doubt that Elway was one of the all-time greats, and there was no doubt that he was going to Hall of Fame career had already gone behind him. And it's the same thing with Ovechkin. There wasn't any doubting his place in the annals of hockey history, except for the fact that he could never get it done. He could never win the big one, and that was going to hang over him the same way it's hung over Dan Marino, the same way it's hung over Charles Barkley. It would hang over Ovechkin if he didn't get this done. And so that's the only thing I can think of. I had another guy call me, and he mentioned Dirk, and I get Dirk because of the length of time with the franchise and that the franchise had long been suffering, but that city had not been suffering
and
for
also
a winner.
The Mavs weren't like, even like perennial chokers or anything like that.
No, they were, well, it was weird. Before Dirk, they were just flat out bad.
Right.
It's not like they got close and blew it and gagged.
The Caps every year have like the best record in hockey, and then
they would have the best record. They'd win divisions. They'd go up 2-0 in playoff series and just collapse.
It was some crazy. They said they've been up 3-1 in series.
It was amazing, and I thought we were headed right there again in the first round this year. They went down 2-0 to Columbus in the first round. I was like, at home no less. They lost the 2 games, and I'm like, the Caps are done again. They're going to do it again. The Caps are it's going to be the Capitals all over again. They're going to blow it. They're going to gag, and they're going to be done. And they came back. They won that series. they had the weird series with Pittsburgh where it just went back and forth, and they were able to exercise that demon, which was their biggest demon as far as an opponent.
Right.
And then they had the weird series with Tampa where the road team won each of the first 4 games, and it went back and forth. But they got over the hump. They finally got it done. And what a city to get it done in, Drew. Could you imagine winning your title in Vegas, man?
Yeah.
They won the Stanley Cup in Las Vegas. There's so many videos on Twitter right now. Alex Ovechkin carrying around the Stanley Cup, celebrating with fans, celebrating with just random drunk idiots in Vegas. It's glorious to watch because I love what the Stanley Cup is.
There's not a cooler trophy.
It's the greatest trophy. It's the coolest presentation. The fact that the players get to take it with them and it means so much that they won't touch it until they win it. There's so much with it that to watch Alex Ovechkin, a guy who's put 14 years of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing to finally get it done and carry that thing around Las Vegas of all places.
And you felt it when he raised that cup.
Oh, you felt it, dude.
Like,
that was catharsis for Alex Ovechkin. As we're watching LeBron cry in 2016 when he won the title for the Caps. But yeah, that was catharsis for Alex Ovechkin. It was an awesome moment. A lot of stuff we didn't quite get into on the air because it was more off air, just kind of jokery. But Jeff made a unique pledge today, and he's vowed. It's a vow I don't think he can keep, but he's vowed to not curse.
Oh.
He said he's not going to curse again, and I've worked with Jeff.
I'll give it till hour maybe 2 of next Monday.
Yeah, I've worked with Jeff for over a decade now, and I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to sound like I don't believe in him. I love him like a brother. If he sets his mind to something, I believe he can do it. Except this thing, it won't happen. No. He tried to lure Dan and I into like placing $50 bets on it, and
well, how long would the duration be?
Well, A, the duration, and B, I'm not going to give you motivation. You're the one making the claim of your willpower.
Right.
You should, by personal pride, you should want to do this. You shouldn't need fiscal motivation from me and Dan. You should want to do it for yourself.
Besides, how do you not cuss when my father goes on there and screams and shouts and his songs and whatnot that we all know Jeff loves so much?
Right. Yeah. Well, I know. I thought I did everything I could to push him over the edge today. I thought maybe the Leo Sayer thing would get him because it makes him so mad, but he stayed cool and he left the room, which is probably the best thing if you don't want to go into just an absolute tirade of profanity.
Sure. What are the rules? Character. What do you do when nobody's watching? Jeff's leaving the room. I think Jeff might be, getting some cussing out.
Does he go down the hall and just like full on
let it loose?
Just let it rip, like just a blue streak of obscenities down the hall, and he comes back and he's like, "Going great, streak's hot, streak is hot. Don't have to do it." Yeah, I don't know, man. What's that old adage? Integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to get like a body cam.
Yeah.
Like a 24/7 body cam.
I think that would make the most sense. I think it's fair for all.
I think it's ironic, Drew, that you're wearing the spectacles today, as your dad tweeted out a very unflattering photo of you yesterday as a youth posing with Albert.
I guess I should have come in right away and addressed the elephant in the room.
There was an elephant in the room. You did not get to it. It's unfortunate. Dan Hicken, if you follow Dan on Twitter, which you probably do, at Dan Hicken, Dan tweeted out a Throwback Thursday picture yesterday of young Drew Hicken here before he turned to the dark side and became a Seminole at the swamp posing. Well, I'm assuming it's a swamp posing with Albert the alligator. Looking very happy, but very like a chubby cheek little munchkin.
Oh yeah.
With full on like the mid '80s to early '90s like metal rim spectacles that every kid got.
If you've ever seen Harry Potter, there could be an argument made that the photo is not even me. In fact, it is a young Potter that my father has tried to play off as me for Twitter likes.
It's funny, when I first started working with Dan, you were a lot younger, and the Boy King was just a baby. And he talked many times about possibly having you live under the stairs. So it's ironic that you say you did look like Harry Potter. That's
My official response was, again, I was young.
Those are dark days for you.
Dark days. My official Twitter response to the photo was that shortly after this time, I had a vision. You can call me a visionary if you'd like.
A vision.
As a young lad, that
did you like chew on some peyote, go in the desert for this vision quest?
That's right. It was actually probably at my time at Disney World alone after my father had lost me. We'll get into that at a different time.
He lost you at Disney for real?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
That's
But
all
anyways,
good.
my response was is that I had a vision that Florida State softball would sit atop of the softball mountaintop 2018, and I knew it had to be done. Hashtag softball fever. Can't get enough.
You've had the softball fever even at that young age.
Yeah. When you know, you know.
You had a vision.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
You got to roll with it.
I don't know if I believe you, but it's a good story. It's good for the after drill crowd. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a fun show. Fridays are always a fun show. Your dad got into a weird streak of singing everything, singing just conversations, and it got uncomfortable for a little bit.
I even thought there for a second when
that was his effort to get Jeff to break the pledge.
Yeah, I was just waiting for. I mean, he was about to sing the exit, the drill.
It was.
He would not stop.
Man, the guy loves to sing. I don't get it. The voice is bad, but
it's
man,
bad.
he loves it. He really loves it.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking forward to tonight's game. I'm eagerly anticipating watching this. I will be fascinated by the theater of it and the psychology of it. Watching LeBron James play what is probably his final game in Cleveland, and in all likelihood his final game as a Cavalier. We talked about potential destinations, and Jeff seems to really like the idea of him going to San Antonio. I don't see it.
I don't either.
It wouldn't surprise me necessarily. I just don't see it coming.
What happens if LeBron goes there, and like we've all said, what if Kawhi leaves? Then he's screwed.
Well, I mean, Kawhi can't leave. He can force his way out.
2019.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. I think if LeBron, if he was to go to San Antonio, he'd probably have to get some kind of assurance from Kawhi that he's planning on sticking around. Because you're not going there to be the solo act in a super small market like San Antonio.
Right.
Even though they've got a great legacy of winning, it's still a very small market. And Cleveland's not the biggest market, but San Antonio is a tiny market.
I think the obvious choice as far as if he really wanted to give the Warriors run for, I mean, it'd have to be the Rockets, right? If you think that really, where is he going to be? But the problem about that is then he goes into the West.
Right.
And then it's, do you even get into the finals? Because you're going to have to go against the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals.
And there is some thought to that. I mean, the Warriors were down 3-2 to the Rockets in this West Finals. Do you stay in the East where you've got a clear shot to the finals, and there's a chance, at least by attrition, that the Warriors may get knocked out before you even have to deal with them?
Right.
Whereas if you do go to the Western Conference, there's no way of avoiding them. You're going to have to go through the Warriors to claim your title. I really think Philly's a real player. I think now that they've parted ways with Brian Colangelo and that whole nonsense story, which no one's buying. No one's buying.
No,
that was
what?
his wife.
Yeah, well, I know Jeff said it, but what coward
Nobody's
move.
buying it, dude. It's so,
my wife did it all. She doesn't even have that information.
No, she took the heat. He followed the Chris Carter method. He made sure he had a fall guy. It turns out the fall guy was his wife. But he he followed the Chris Carter method. He got himself a fall guy, or a fall lady in this case. Mm-hmm. And he got himself a clean out. But it's not a clean out, man, because the info came from him. Everybody knows the info came from him. And he's unhireable now. It doesn't matter if he's a Colangelo, their basketball royalty. He can't even work for, his dad. Jerry couldn't even hire him to work somewhere because the stink is too bad.
Philly will offer LeBron first ever player GM role.
Well, the thought is, and again, it's all speculation, but that, David Griffin would wind up in Philadelphia as the GM, and LeBron and him had a great relationship when they were together in Cleveland, and LeBron would go there, and, they'd sort of work hand in hand on shaping that roster that is already a pretty good roster.
Yeah.
I know going to Houston because they've got, an MVP candidate and a Hall of Fame point guard in Chris Paul, but it's a young group. But as far as talent, I mean, the talent is through the roof with Embiid and Simmons, and really even Fultz. He struggled with his shot, but he showed flashes, and if he can find it, there's a reason he was the number one pick. It wasn't like some brain dead move to draft Markelle Fultz number one.
Right.
There was something they liked about him. He's an NBA ready player. It's just something went wrong upstairs with him. He forgot how to shoot the basketball. It was the weirdest thing.
I don't know if you guys have seen some of those clips of him trying to figure it out. It is bad.
It's ugly, dude. It got bad. But if he can get it right, that's another really talented piece. So I wouldn't sleep on Philly. Plus, the idea of LeBron being able to go square up with Kyrie all season would be
you got to think, like I said, the idea of Houston and San Antonio, it makes sense. But like I said, and like you're saying, I think at the end of the day, he probably stays in the East. I can't really see why he would leave the East.
No, and and I'm sure Cleveland's going to make a play. They're going to come in and say, what do we have to do to keep you around? How do we make you happy? I don't know if there's a way.
But especially when you look at, first off, it feels like when you hear him talking, it feels like as you're watching this series, in that moment where really the series is over, the moment in game one, it looks like where LeBron looks at Lou and goes, "Did we have any timeouts?" And you see him just go, boom. I'm like, series over.
And that was the thing. And LeBron, that moment, that video between the timeout situation and LeBron on the bench, and then after the game, Ty Lue being asked if the team is broken, and he says, "We're not a broken team." And the only team that your answer is, "We're not a broken team," is a broken team.
Yeah.
You've got something to say if somebody accuses your team of being broken besides, "We're not a broken team."
Yeah.
Unless your team's broken. And I feel like that's ultimately what's at stake here is Cleveland. The way game one went down for them it's too much to overcome, because
the beginning of the end.
That was their best shot. That was demoralizing to lose that game the way they did.
And when the odds makers too have made now Cleveland such a long shot to keep LeBron, it makes you, typically that means that they know something that a lot of other people don't know. I just think his foot's halfway out the door.
It is. The way he's talking now in the media the last 24 hours, I mean, it sounds like he's already conceded this series, if not this game tonight.
Yeah.
And he's almost eager to get the offseason started. I'm not trying to assume I know what's in LeBron James's mind, but
the unbelievable! They have rattled off 3 straight victories.
It just seems like the vibe coming off of LeBron James in the media has shifted in the last 24 hours.
No, I agree.
Like, it went from, we're going to fight like hell, we're going to grind, we're going to give it our all, and now he's complimenting about how they're just stacked better than we are.
Everyone's trying to figure out how to beat them.
KD's massive compliments of Kevin Durant, and everybody knew Kevin Durant was great except the Blazers. It's and he's making jokes about the Cavs owner sending out tweets, and are we sure it was his Twitter? It's just it's weird. The tone has shifted, and I feel like it's because in his mind, this game has already ended. His season has already ended, and his time in Cleveland has already ended.
It's like a senior on the last day of school.
And that's why I'm fascinated to watch tonight, because I just want to see, how does he approach it? How does he come into it? How do his teammates approach it? How does the fans approach it? It's going to be a weird, like, psychosocial study of
the vibe and
a relationship ending in front of you in Cleveland, like the final breakup.
It's not going to be about It's not going to be.
It's
about
like the rose ceremony.
Yeah. It's not going to be about the series at all. The whole
series
vibe there and all the fans. It's all going to be about LeBron. Please don't leave us.
Right, and we won't have. The LeBron equivalent of the rose ceremony in the decision 2. They're not going to do that.
Could you imagine?
It's gonna come.
He gets a GM from each team to come out.
Right,
I have just one rose.
What if LeBron did that, man? He just took like 16 and said, screw it. Let's do the LeBron lottery.
He sits there with a bottle of wine.
He stacks up, gives everybody odds. They put ping pong balls in the bin. Someone's gonna win me.
Oh my god.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great theater. But no,
really
I if I had to put a bet on a team right now for LeBron, I'd say Philly. If I had to do a power ranking of likely destinations, I would say Philly, LA, Houston.
Yeah, because I mean, the fact of the matter is there was a lot of smoke about LA. I mean,
there's too much smoke about LA. The talk about him talking with Paul George about teaming up out there. They've already got Lonzo. He loves LA. And I think there'd be an appeal to him too of finishing his career and being part of one of the true legacy
what the Lakers are, and
being part of, whether it was the Lakers or the Celtics or the Knicks, or even the Bulls to some degree, but not so much anymore. Being part of one of those true NBA signature franchises.
Yeah.
The royalty of the league.
Sure.
And there is no greater NBA royalty than the Lakers or Celtics. And he's not going to the Celtics. He's not going to play with Kyrie.
God, wouldn't that be it?
But I can see how there's an argument to be made that if Paul George goes there and LeBron goes there, and if Lonzo's half the player they hope he is, that there's pieces there to be competitive.
Well, what about Klay Thompson?
Kawhi in 2 years, Klay in 2 years. There's guys who may want to go make that work out in LA, and bringing LA back to the mountaintop could be a nice little cherry on top of the LeBron James story. It's certainly possible.
Right.
We're going to be here every day for After Drill, immediately following the drill, 10 a.m. every day right here on YouTube And we hope you join us following the drill for some of the post-show festivities. Now, Danny's on vacay middle of next week, so we'll. Are you going with him?
No.
No? Okay, good.
I don't
Drew will
get
still
it.
be
I
here.
don't get the invites.
No, he's a grown-up son now, so he doesn't get the vacay invites. Boy King will be with him. But Boy King's phone may not be with him, but
Yeah.
the Boy King will be.
That's right.
So we'll see you Monday at 10 for another edition of After Drill. Peace, Googans.